Hi, welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out. I am Judy Nathans,
I'm still Robert Winters,
and it's still January
whether you
15th.
like it or not.
Yeah, right.
Right.
So,
All right. So I don't know. Let's see. Maybe we should just dive right in and talk a little bit about something which was not specific to the city council.
no, but
It
it's what's
Oh, yeah, maybe it is.
it's
yeah.
because of the city and our policies and everything that
Yeah.
has
So
happened.
so let's not be too cryptic here. and
But
just
we
say
can
that,
just go to, you
So-
want to show this?
Well, I'll do 1 second here.
Yeah.
So on Saturday there's a group. Actually, what's it called? It's called the Livable Cambridge. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I get a little confused because it was a Cambridge.
Hosted
Citizens
by
Forum,
Friends of
whatever.
Livable Cambridge, Neighborhood, well, it's many groups too, but
yeah,
Livable
okay.
Cambridge.
All right. So anyway, let me just see what the flyer was. This
Yeah.
was the flyer. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was, and you know, there was, yes, it was featured with Jim Tingle. You know, why local politics mattered, but the big featured headline was
Yeah.
Community Forum: How big is too big?
Yeah.
Which is kind of making a statement saying
Yeah.
this is our concern. You know.
Yeah.
What do you want from more livable Cambridge, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Hosted by Livable Cambridge, Neighborhood Association leaders, and other volunteer groups. You know, and you know, I think the little graphic at the bottom is showing some little houses as well as a couple of big.
Well, I think it's
buildings
showing
and
different
whatever.
neighborhoods. That's to me
Maybe
what,
so.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
so.
okay.
Right. So anyway, that was the backdrop of it here. Now just a little bit of the background for this. Before this happened, you know, when I first heard it was happening, it was largely advertised through things like Facebook and whatnot. So
But even before that, everyone got that publication about trees, which was the same group.
well,
You-
yes and no. And actually, I
Did you get the
and I
right
brought-
one? There it
yeah,
is.
yeah, this
Cambridge
was
News
the
it's
bright
called,
one,
yeah.
Right.
Well,
Tree
yes and no,
canopy growth.
but part of it, because
Right.
Charles T.
And this,
yeah.
right, so this basically encouraged people to come to a public hearing about trees and whatever. okay?
That was the tree, yeah.
So this was very much a different thing.
Right, but-
okay?
yeah.
But it's some of the same people. I was a little perplexed at one of the, I think it was actually Suzanne Vieille who
Lier.
announced it, referred to this Association for Cambridge Neighborhoods, which is the entity that Charlie Teague kind of wraps himself in.
Association for
Cambridge
ACN,
ACN, which is confusing because it's
a
also
better Cambridge, which is
there's AB. Well, okay, there's
all
a
right,
lot
there's
of
a
confusion.
lot of
right?
acronyms.
Right.
So-
So anyway, referred to this as the umbrella organization that represents us all. And I said, I don't think anybody who's ever interacted really with ACN would really honestly view it that way.
Yeah.
It's yet another little group of people who
Yeah.
got a point of view, you know.
Yeah.
And that's it. Whether it's a good one or bad one isn't
Yeah.
the issue. It's just that
Yeah.
they don't represent anybody, really.
Well,
You know, I think they'd like to, but they don't, right? So the thing is so why was there a forum being held? I think the name gives it away. You know, how big is too big it's a little bit of a hearkening back to sentiments that I remember hearing very loud and clear during the 1990s. Right? Back when you had Cambridge Residents for Growth Management, everybody was concerned about the rapid escalation then of commercial development.
right. Kendall and,
right,
yeah.
okay, and so rent control was still in place initially, and then,
Well,
but
early
then,
night, yeah.
yeah, early 90s. But the thing is by the time later in the decade happened, it wasn't so much people's concern about commercial growth, so much as it was the fact is that the city
Rents
was
rising and
well,
market
that
housing.
wasn't really
No?
happening in a rapid way yet. But the
Well,
thing is
with the
that
loss of rent control.
it still took a little while for
Yeah.
you know, for things to really start going crazy. But what happened is that the city policies were very much sort of like we got to build more housing, right? So they changed things in various. The biggest one was probably that any area, basically housing became a permitted use in pretty much every zone in the city. And that
Really?
included former industrial zones. So
Oh.
what you were seeing then, without any need for any special rezoning to do it, if you had someplace like in North Point or Alewife, where you used to have things like steel manufacturing or fabrication, and then or else it was warehouses, that you could just build housing in them, and the city was encouraging it. And it started to happen, and it happened very rapidly. I would argue that, in fact, the Envision Cambridge thing really happened because there was a lot of rapid housing growth happening around Alewife.
Well, Alewife more so than even
Well, because that's where
Kendall.
those were the former industrial areas.
Right.
So,
Right,
so the thing
okay.
is that so the big concern is not quite analogous to what we had during the 1990s, where the fear was commercial growth. Now it was
It's more
rapid
housing,
housing growth and the scale
Heights
of the
and
housing
density,
growth,
right.
housing density, etc. All right, so that was and the Envision Cambridge process, for what it's worth, basically some of the provisions that are coming out of that are talking about building more density. And some people like it, some people don't. I think more people have warmed up to density as sort of a
Yeah,
can be a good thing sort of thing, as opposed
Right.
to all density must be
Right.
opposed, right?
right.
But the thing is some of the recommendations that we saw in some of the early ideas from Envision Cambridge included things like promoting pretty large scale buildings,
In
primarily
areas
housing
that are
in
more used to like.
Harvard Square, Porter
yeah.
Square, places like that. I think in Central Square, people, a lot of people around Central Square said, "Sure, we can do that," but other places in the city, not necessarily. You know, it's like some of the corridors, like whether it's Cambridge Street or Massachusetts Avenue, whatever, should they be seeing 17-story buildings, or what's going to happen, right? So I think that's the background about what people were concerned about.
Oh, I thought they're concerned about what's happening in the little neighborhoods, so that they could have a 4-unit
Well,
building.
okay, so that's probably what that's
I-
probably the straw that broke the camel's
Yeah,
back, was
I
when
think so, yeah.
the city of Cambridge, in its not so infinite wisdom, chose to
Promote
promote some
one aspect of
specific
the
aspects
Envision,
of this,
yeah.
having to do with this so-called affordable housing overlay,
super
as well as super
yeah.
inclusionary and some other things. So, which basically said, not only do we want to have super heights in certain places, but also we think that you people who are living in Res A or Res B districts, you're a bunch of snotty rich people, and we got to put some 6-story buildings next to you. I'm basically saying this was the
Robert
perception.
is paraphrasing here.
Right, but this was the perception that
I know,
leads to the concern.
I know.
Okay, you know, whether that's exact truth or not, that's not so much the issue. But so anyway, so they put together this forum, and now what I noted as soon as it was starting getting promoted was that the livable people came out and they were saying, you know, I think the spin was, we're a little worried about this density. And then some of the Better Cambridge people said, "Oh yeah, well we're going to show up at your meeting."
Did they?
Oh yes, they did.
Oh, okay.
He says, you know, and then there was some say, "Oh, are they going to pack the meeting? What's going to happen here? Is this just going to be a shouting match?" And I think maybe, and again, I may be reading more into this than I'm entitled to, but then there was a bit of a change in tone, like, "Oh, this is going to be a get together. We're all going to get along, and we're all going to be able to talk to each other,
And
whatever."
it wasn't just about housing.
Right, and by the way, I think that's the reason why at this meeting on
Yeah.
Saturday, where there was actually an exercise where the person who was leading it, Nicola, was actually saying, "I want everybody to close your eyes, and I want you to visualize this." And like for like 2 minutes, they were like people close their eyes in the room.
Wait, that happened there?
This
I'm
happened
so
at the
glad
meeting.
I didn't go.
I believe
hate those
me, I
things.
purposely left my eyes wide open
yeah.
the whole time, and I will tell you, there were city councilors who
There were
as soon
5
as-
counselors, they said there. Who
right,
was it? I can guess.
and
who
at
it
least a
was.
few of them, when
Yeah.
they were, you know, when the instruction was everybody close your eyes
Yeah.
and start meditating in a Zen-like way about
Yeah.
this, they whacked out their cell phones in about a
Oh, wow.
nanosecond.
All of them?
All the ones I could see, right?
Okay.
So,
well, there were 5
and it
there,
wasn't
they
just
said.
them; it was others too. You know.
Yeah.
Some of us were like giving the high sign to each other across the room, going, "Hey, this
Yeah,
is pretty
I just
funny,
don't
right?"
do that. Ugh.
But why would they even do that? Because I think there was an anticipation of conflict,
Yeah,
which didn't really
okay.
happen. Okay, maybe that's why it didn't happen. I don't know. But they also chose to bring in solicit responses from people from various neighborhood
So
associations.
so was it structured that groups would present? How was it structured?
Yes and no. Basically, what happened, and again, I'll probably get a little bit of this
Did
wrong. but
anybody videotape it?
Charlie Teague, right?
Oh, well then
Yeah,
it
yeah.
should appear somewhere.
Right, little pieces, you know, but you'll show the pieces that are supportive of one's point
Maybe.
of view, I suppose.
I don't know. It should have been straight.
Well, there was a request put in to do that, but there was not enough lead time to make it
Oh,
happen.
okay. All right.
Otherwise, I'm sure CCTV
Wait, wasn't it
would
at
have
the
been over
senior
there.
center? Isn't
It
that,
was.
Isn't that wired for that?
You still got to bring in the cameras to do it. though.
Okay, all right.
So,
You're right. Yeah, yeah.
But it was packed. I mean, it was like
Yeah, they said 150 people.
something like that. Yeah. So actually, a little too much for the room, quite honestly.
Yeah, because you're supposed
Yeah.
to sit. It wasn't. You were around tables.
Yeah, we started out. It was like around tables, and there was some
Filling
food in the
out.
back too, you know. But the thing is, so there was some initial presentations, some PowerPoint presentation, which
By
was
who?
Suzanne,
Okay,
right, who was basically basically presenting the submissions from the various neighborhood associations, because they were able to go through them quickly.
now, what group did she aligners, is she aligners at Livable? I thought she was Harvard, I get confused, there's a couple
What-
Suzannes. Who's Preston? There's a Suzanne, is that Harvard Square Business? I don't know.
All right, no, Suzanne, she's with this Harvard Square Neighborhood
So that is the
Association,
Har, okay, and they have
which is the
separate meetings.
former Harvard Square Defense Fund is now
Okay.
doing business
Okay,
as
so that's,
Harvard Square
all right, so I'm
Neighborhood
thinking of the
Association.
right person.
Right, but
Okay.
the thing is, she and a few other people from other neighborhoods sort of were trying to, I think, organize a kind
more,
of a new
right, like we all kind of
quasi-political
agree with
entity.
each other, right,
Right, sort of. So I think this livable Cambridge is sort of in its
like an
na-
umbrella thing.
Well,
Yeah,
they're trying to create
Yeah.
something, and I think,
yeah,
honestly, this is
Nothing
going
wrong
to be
with
a
that.
municipal election year, and I think
Oh,
there's
yeah.
some effort being expended to try and do a little
instead of each
organizing.
group doing their own thing, maybe they
Well-
organize, and we are now having a forum represent, all of us are gonna be there or something.
Well, insofar as
Yeah.
I think the city's already going out there and pretty much saying, well, we've already decided this is what the world should be, rather than have an individual neighborhood association saying, well, I don't know if we like that, whatever. They're trying to get something a little bit more unified about that.
Yeah,
So maybe that's really what this
Okay.
is about.
yeah,
And the thing is, they can't really go to ABC because ABC says
No.
build it higher, thicker, deeper, taller, faster,
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And then the Cambridge Residents Alliance, which is now, I don't know what the hell they represent because
Were they,
half of-
they were there though, no?
but some of their people
Yeah.
are gung ho for more density and height as long as it gives more subsidized housing. And then some of the other people who I always thought of as associated with the Residents Alliance are the kind of people who I used
What,
to
not
joke
in
and
my-
say
yeah,
they'd
yeah.
rather downzone Cambridge to farmland,
Yeah.
right? So I think they
there's-
have a bit of an
there's
identity
within-
crisis right
Yeah,
now.
well, I mean, that would
Yeah.
make sense.
But the
Within
thing is
groups,
that-
you're not
but-
gonna have everyone agree
Right,
on
but
something.
if you're trying to have
A
the question
unified-
raised
yeah.
about
Right,
and make it into an issue for a municipal election year,
yeah,
you're not going to go to ABC and you're not going to go to
Right.
Cambridge Residents Alliance because they're
Right.
not going to help you.
right.
So
So this
you
was
have
actually
to
then a good
strike out on
attempt to
your
try
own.
to do that,
Right.
yeah,
I think that Charlie Teague and his Association of Cambridge Neighborhoods is sort of trying to kind of marry up with them
Yeah.
on this. Because I think there's a bit of a kind of a already well-established stop development type of
Yeah.
mindset amongst them.
Mm.
But we'll see, honestly. One of the things that, and again, I'm not trying to just be the naysayer here, believe me, but, one of the things that inevitably happens when you try and put together a kind of a Cambridge forum on it, pretty much anything, is that you go out there and you say, this is our agenda, this is what we want to do. You put in your title, how big is too big, whatever. But then when you actually have like open time for open questions,
yeah,
all the usual characters start showing up and
Yep.
they basically try and hijack your meeting.
yeah,
So, and again, they may be totally legitimate concerns. If somebody says, well,
But
I
it-
was homeless and I did this and that,
Yeah,
I go, well,
yeah.
yeah, that's an important idea and I'm really sympathetic, but why are you bringing that up at a forum about how big is too big, which is about urban planning, right?
well,
Or, I sometimes jokingly refer to it as the silver maple forest effect, which is the phenomenon where no matter what the meeting is about, this is a few years ago, somebody would get up and then want to put in about 10 minutes of an appeal for saving the silver maple forest.
except that your example of homelessness is connected on some level.
Connected on some level.
I mean, it's
right.
housing, it's like there's no housing for, whatever,
Right,
I'm just,
Right.
but you're right, I mean, you have to be pretty,
Right, so the meeting after the neighborhood association people made their little mini introductions, whatever, they went to open questions. That's when things kind of wandered off the.
yeah. How
Off
did,
the
who
reservation
kept
bit.
track, how did they do that? Who picked the questioners?
You know what? All right, I'm going to make a confession, which is at
Yeah.
that point I started going, I'm losing interest, so I
Yeah.
went out to the corner and started just shooting the breeze with
Which is
friends.
what you usually do.
Yeah, yeah. So me and Patrick Barrett are out there. kinda
But who
chatting
was
it
the person calling on
up. Actually,
people?
Sean Cherney, former city council
Oh.
candidate, and also
Yeah,
guy knows a thing or two about housing and
but
housing
no, but he
issues.
was outside,
So he was at the meeting, and then we were also chatting outside
okay,
as well.
yeah,
So and then I went back inside when Jimmy Tingle got to talking. And
yeah.
the thing I want to say about Jimmy Tingle about this was that, so I know. Oh yeah, I should just also say this is that when there's a room where I can scan the room and realize I personally know 3/4 or
Yeah.
more of the people, then that tells me that you haven't really done
reached
outreach.
out to the, yeah, well,
Okay,
yeah.
but so so it's a gathering of activists. All right, all
It's the
right.
people that show up at public
Yeah.
comment, it's the, yeah,
So in that sense, how
Yeah.
different is it from anything else? I
Yeah.
really don't know.
yeah,
But the thing is that an activist in Cambridge tend to sort of have a point of view. I'm right, you're wrong. That's it, right? So Jimmy Tingle comes on to close out the show. It's a 2-hour meeting, so he does sort of a bit of a thing. It's a bit of like stand-up, but
yeah.
he was actually being
that's what
very,
it
very
is.
topical and specific. But the overriding theme of Jimmy's bit was about compromise. And I thought, wow, that's great. And he specifically said, his mom, lives on Broadway,
Recently
whatever,
died, yeah.
and family had some property in Cambridge and said, not everybody during the rent control years loved all aspects of rent control.
Right.
But on the other hand, a lot of people are kind of bothered that the rents just went out of this world
Yeah,
after the end of rent control. So,
right.
now some of my friends with the small property owners would probably are thrilled that there is no such thing as rent control.
Are you saying it's not for you, or that's what Jimmy said?
No, I'm just
confused. Oh.
speaking for me here right now.
Oh,
But
yeah,
the thing
yeah.
is that
Right,
so the SPOA people are probably just thrilled with the outcome, right? But not everybody's so thrilled with the outcome. And there was even back there in the rent control years, there was some speculation: is there a way to find a compromise
right,
to sort of be fair to everybody?
right.
And nobody was interested in finding that
No,
compromise.
and that's why it went to a state referendum,
went to the
because they
state.
didn't do what they could have done,
And they right, exactly. So he was making that point. Here you're having a meeting about density, and people are like, how are you going to meet housing needs and affordability and da 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 da. He said, you realize part of the reason why you're having the debate now and the crisis now is because people weren't able to find compromise back when they possibly had a chance to do so. And and I think it's appropriate to point out that that was because it was a political impossibility to find
right.
compromise.
You wouldn't get voted in.
It was structurally made impossible.
Yeah.
Because if you were a person who was pro-rent control and you wavered and you said, well, maybe we ought to cross the aisle and go and talk to
There
these folks
goes
here,
that vote, yeah.
then the
Yeah.
first thing you want to do is disendorse you, throw you out the building, right? And the same thing is if you were a person who was running on the other side of the coin and you said, well, maybe rent control's not so bad, they didn't want any part of you. So
So what do you think is happening now? I mean, in terms of, what would be the compromise?
I don't know that we have
Yeah.
one in play right now.
Yeah.
It's just but on the other hand, I also don't view that the situation right now as a permanent state of affairs.
Yeah.
For example, accelerating rents, just do the math, cannot sustain forever. So there has to be a leveling off.
I don't know
right?
about that. They seem to,
No, I mean the thing is, it's leveling off. The rate of acceleration, it is
the
found.
property values are just continue to go up. No, not going down. I mean,
I didn't say they're going to go down.
Yeah.
I think that would be the only way you'd ever see property values go down is if there was not just a recession in this country, but a worse.
well,
Locally.
where tech exploded, and then all the people that are buying these
Right, if there
million
was
and
a-
a half units can't
Yeah,
afford them anymore.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
So I think the best anybody can
Yeah.
hope for is a leveling off of rents, and then over time, if that leveling is adequate, and if as inflation happens on its own too, that maybe in fact affordability just starts to happen again. But it's not going to happen soon. I think anybody thinks it's going to happen soon is kidding themselves, right? But on the other hand, there are things that you do have to do, and I think anybody who really understands any of this understands you've got to build some housing in the region.
Yep.
Right? Because if people are competing for a finite supply of a good, they're going to be displacing people. They're going to be driving the costs out.
Yeah.
They're going to be outbidding each other. It's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
But anyway, I appreciated Jimmy just talking about the concept of compromise. There's a part of me, if I'm feeling optimistic, I think, well, maybe people are understanding where he's coming from. And then there's the other side of me says, that's probably when they started tuning him out, when he started saying the word
I don't know
compromise.
about that. With the government shutdown and everything, I think he's also speaking to a larger issue too.
Yeah,
That you wonder, well, maybe is there a compromise? But I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, in my time during this whole Envision process, I mean, I kind of thought there was. I'm not so positive about that right now because of what the recommendations seem to me to be more like the activists' wish lists. And that's not how you find compromise. Compromise to me would mean, well, transit-oriented development, heights and densities do make sense in some places, and maybe they don't make sense in other places. Compromise might also mean saying that maybe the city of Cambridge doesn't have to be one thing. Maybe it doesn't have to be, density, density, density. Maybe it's not such a bad thing to have some parts of the city that are high density and some that are relatively
we
low.
have many kinds of neighborhoods and many kinds of places that are,
And
I
maybe-
don't want it to all look alike.
Right, but
you
maybe
know,
that's
and-
something we should celebrate
Yeah.
rather than trying to challenge.
Yeah.
The rhetoric that's coming out of a lot of the ABC people right now is basically pretty nasty. They're basically saying, oh, you're a bunch of older people living, who are rich, who are living in this part of town here.
You have too much space
and
or whatever.
you're-
I don't know. Are they really saying things like that?
Yeah.
Are they all for the affordable
They're-
overlay thing?
Gung-ho. Yeah. And I think part of it is basically they want to stick it to the man, they want to, there is almost like a vengeful quality to the
But
rhetoric.
some of those, they're not Occupy Boston people necessarily. Some of them are property owners, aren't
Listen,
they? I mean, they're,
listen. If 30% of Cambridge was like like people with mansions and nobody could
30%?
it's not that way. It's actually a relatively small fraction.
You think so? I don't know.
I mean-
It's pretty high income.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
Okay,
is
what are you
that
saying?
the mere fact that we'll use an epithet like Brattle Street means it's
Oh.
relatively localized. There are some
But it's
areas
not just
like
Brattle.
Shady Hill.
Cambridge is going
Make-
$3 million houses.
I'm not talking about the cost of housing. I'm just talking
Okay.
about the architecture and the density of the housing.
Okay.
Mid-Cambridge is largely packed full of triple deckers.
Oh
and
yeah. Oh
two-family
yeah.
homes.
Definitely. I think Cambridge is more more,
It's primarily residence
2 and
C,
3. Yes.
C1, so it's pretty dense.
Yes.
and,
Very. Yeah.
But there are some residence B districts in the city. There's some residence A districts, but it's not
But
that
not that.
much.
Yeah, okay. In that respect, yes. I
Right.
see what you're saying.
But it seems to me that
Yeah.
there are some people, including some elected officials,
Mm-hmm.
who are not going to be happy until they basically cram a bunch of apartment buildings into some residence A districts because we got to show those people,
Well, that's extreme. I think we're talking about along the corridors,
think
not
that's
not
exactly
not
what
right
I'm
in the
saying.
middle of Brattle and
Well-
Spark Street, are we?
I don't know.
And I think there
You
are
know,
some two families.
I think there is a place for some compromise in
Yeah.
people's perspectives about this to say, it's not a bad thing to be able to sort of take people down Brattle Street and say, look at the mansions, some of these are old historic figures here, and then still be able to go down to East Cambridge and enjoy
Every city
density and,
has that
Cosmos
kind
and
of
Damiano festival.
terrain in a way
Yeah.
because you've had
So let's
people
celebrate
that
it.
Yeah.
I, it's like I forget where I wrote it, but I wrote something like diversity comes in many forms, and that includes diversity of densities, diversity of income, or whatever. And trying to homogenize things by just somehow driving people out
Yeah.
because they're not quite of your
Yeah, but
economic strata.
all right. I
is
just
the
don't.
campaign.
I don't see it as that extreme. But then you're around people.
I'm
Those people maybe more.
yeah,
But I just feel
no,
like
there's a reason why I'm no longer affiliated with any
bet,
of these
yeah.
organizations.
Yeah.
Quite honestly,
yeah.
the narrow rhetoric of
Well,
pretty
I
much
just
all
hate
of them
hearing the
bothers
same
me.
voices, the same. I get tired of it.
I think it's.
when-
I
and
think that's a
you know.
valid concern. I absolutely
But-
think it's a valid concern.
But I'm glad they have a voice. I'm not out
Yeah,
there saying
yeah.
anything. So.
So
you know.
what will become of this? How big is too big?
Oh, this.
thing?
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't
Well,
know.
so what was the end? I just read some
Well, I
stuff
mean,
on it that
so-
actually environment and climate change was actually the
It's
more
not-
the issue.
As we would say, it's a non-scientific survey. So if you
Yeah.
basically just you ask some representatives
Mm-hmm.
of the relatively non-representative neighborhood associations, what are your highest priorities? You
There was a form you had to fill out,
yeah,
right?
and then you make a list.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you basically say, okay, how many people said
Yeah.
trees? How many people
Yeah.
said climate change?
And then they had it.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, you don't have to be a statistician to know that there's not a whole lot of validity in
Hmm.
making a ranking system that way. But the thing is what it is still it's an expression of concern, right?
So
it's
what
anecdotal.
Right.
So saying what ranked first, second, third is meaningless. But it is pretty clear as we head into this municipal election year that there are a lot of people who would like things like protection of tree canopy, putting some limitations on growth, so that even if there's transit-oriented development and some more density, that it's not, just out of scale like
Yeah.
crazy.
Makes sense.
Right, I think that will be a
Yeah.
big point of discussion. There'll be the usual issues, bike lanes, etc. Like
Yeah.
it's inescapable.
Oh, yeah, River Street came up
Right.
last night too.
Yeah.
That's gonna be.
Yeah. So the way we have to interpret what happened on Saturday was not so much like, well, what was the outcome? What happens next? So much
It was more as a way to people to.
it was an expression of
to
where
vent,
we are,
yeah.
like a little snapshot
Right.
of where some sentiments are, and we'll see where it goes. I mean, as I say, some of the very people who are in there at a forum on how big is too big, I happen to know, are very much in favor of big, 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 big. And they were there, and some of them.
So what is there any follow? Did they say how this is going to progress from here? Will there be another meeting or?
I'm sure there will be other meetings and other forums and other things, and I hope it doesn't just devolve into some kind of a legitimization of like the Association of Cambridge Neighborhoods as being something that it isn't. Honestly, if I can get through the end of 2019 and watch a Better Cambridge, the Cambridge Residents Alliance, Association of Cambridge Neighborhoods, basically just dissolve, I'll be the happiest
Good
man
luck
on
on
earth.
that one.
Right?
Well, they're all going to have forums. It'll be
everybody's competing for saying we are the legitimate voice of the people, and they're not. None of them are. None of them. The neighborhood associations, some of them do better or worse jobs of it. I always said groups like the Agassiz Neighborhood Council, who is a child-centered, they operate daycares, they open up an art gallery, whatever. They're the best. Porter Square Neighborhood Association, they're trying to make everything work really well. Good matching of the commercial and the residential parts of Porter Square.
Well,
I have a
Cambridge
lot of
Court
respect.
Neighborhood Association.
I have a lot of respect for
Kathy
Cambridge,
Susie and
Cambridge
all the
Court
people
Neighborhood
there. I mean,
Association.
they're helping with the whole. Well, that's separate, but
Yeah.
Magazine Beach came
And-
out of that.
And
yeah.
there are others, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I'm not going to sort of give a check mark to neighborhood associations just because they're neighborhood associations.
No, but I think the neighbors have been around longer than, say,
Yeah.
Better Cambridge and the others. Okay,
That's
we
true.
gotta
So
say goodbye.
anyway,
Are we here next week?
I think we're here next week.
Okay,
See you then.
bye.